Today we're going to talk about one of the biggest pitfalls that I see in this space. When people learn about the law of attraction, they learn that their internal state is essentially creating what they perceive as external reality. When they find out that all external reality is basically source consciousness projected down and creating a mirror of the internal consciousness within us. A truly spiritual person is not someone actually who can just be a wizard and basically cast a spell for something to appear magically in physical reality. You might think that's what true spirituality is, but the more that I learn from people that have gone before me, great teachers, great authors, enlightened masters, the more I realize that that's not real, true spirituality for us on this physical material plane. The most spiritual people to have lived, what they had that was kind of different and a cut above and that caused them to operate at the level of consciousness of pure enlightenment, is they had this total non-resistance. They were just in this state of flow, of connectedness, of non-duality, of just wholeness. And that is something that I feel like a lot of us actually miss. We're so focused on trying to manifest the dream life. We want to get the car, we want to get the relationship, we want to get the money. And I think you do need to go through that process and you need to go on that journey when you first start this spiritual work or your manifestation journey, whatever it is you're doing at the moment. I think that's a really important chapter because you wake up to the power of your energy and your mindset and healing from past traumas, etc., etc. You can see tangibly how that is reflected in physical reality. But what happens then is there's kind of another layer. Everything is layered in this reality, but there's kind of another layer where you can get caught up in this idea that you are really responsible for everything in your reality, which I know I say that you are, and you are to an extent, but it's not helpful to take on that mindset so strongly that you start to blame and shame yourself anytime you have an undesired circumstance in your reality. Because some circumstances are part of your soul's journey. A lot of it is up to you and it's up to the energy that you're embodying. But there are certain trials, tribulations and challenges that our higher selves have intended for us to go through in this lifetime, so that we can stand exactly in the energy that we are supposed to stand in by the end of this lifetime. And when you get into resistance to challenges and to circumstances, specific types of circumstances in your reality, and you just point the finger back at yourself and you start to blame and shame yourself and try to just heal your way out of the circumstance, you try to change your mindset about the circumstance, you try really hard to start vibrating at the level of a different circumstance and it's still not changing, then it's time for you to maybe put down your weapons and stop resisting. Because there's a layer to that as well, where resistance creates persistence. So when we look at the truly enlightened beings in this world, Michael Singer talks about this a lot. David Hawkins talks about this in his book, Letting Go. What they see from a really enlightened state of consciousness is a person who is just totally accepting of every moment, of every circumstance, of everything that is happening. And in that, you will begin to find a supreme amount of peace. A lot of people have resistance to the idea of non-resistance because they're like, if I accept it, then that means I'm saying it's okay and that means it's going to continue. But actually the reverse is true. Okay, so let's look at this energetically for a second. When you resist something, so let's say your friend is acting a bit weird. Okay, let's say they've been acting weird for a while and you are talking to your partner about this. You're like, what is wrong with Karen? She's really annoying me. I don't know why she showed up like this. She needs to change back to the way she was before. She needs to heal. Maybe I'll do a tarot reading on her, whatever. And So you're resisting the way that Karen is showing up. You're resisting the personality that Karen is embodying lately. Karen is going to keep embodying that personality because what you resist persists, because you are basically now telling the story of this being your reality. You're placing your energy on it. You're placing your attention on it. You're placing importance on it. And when you do those things, essentially what you're saying to the universe, to this like algorithm, this matrix, you're saying, this is what exists. Even if you're saying, I don't want this to exist, you're still saying, this is what exists and I don't want it to exist. So you're going to continue to get a reality where this is what exists, but you don't want it to exist. If you were to go about it, like an enlightened master were to go about it, you would say, this is what it is. Karen is on her journey. I am on my journey. And you would get curious as to why this circumstance is placed in front of you. There could be another situation. Let's say you've been doing inner work for a long time and you've had really good results and you've manifested a lot of changes in your reality. And yet something seemingly negative happens in your reality. Maybe your relationship breaks down. Maybe your career falls apart. Something really big and really difficult might happen. If you resist that, you run the risk of missing out on a chance for a really valuable lesson. Because if you think back on your life for one moment, and I'm not saying we have to suffer to grow, but oftentimes we incarnate, our higher self chooses how we incarnate, okay? And so we incarnate into particular environments, into particular family dynamics. And some of us incarnate into family dynamics that are loving and supportive. And others of us incarnate into family dynamics that are more traumatic and that are more emotionally damaging. And so one is negative, one is positive. And many of the most enlightened beings on this planet, many of the most powerful beings to have walked this planet, if not the majority, all went through significant trauma in their early life. So trauma, pain, and suffering can be a precursor to expansion and awakening. More often than not, trauma, pain, and suffering, not that it's necessary, but the higher self would choose such a thing so that you can essentially grow. Your consciousness will fragment and split in these moments, but it will get to the point within your pain, you'll hit a pain threshold and you'll start to ask, why is life this way? How can I alchemize this pain? How can I heal from this? And that will open you up to healing, to expansion, and then to higher levels of awareness. As we know, there's also a law in Hermeticism of rhythm that states the measure of the pendulum swing to the left equates to the measure of the pendulum swing to the right, meaning a person who withstands a certain amount of darkness has now created the capacity to contain the same amount of light in the opposite direction, okay? And even if we think about the shadow self, what is the shadow self? It's parts of the unconscious that were created in moments of trauma or distress. A person who goes through a lot of trauma typically has more of the unconscious self, more of the shadow self, like bigger parts of the self that are not cast within the light of consciousness, that are not within the conscious awareness of that person. When this person begins to heal and begins to want to change and address these things, they have a bigger shift in their consciousness because more parts of themselves are becoming conscious than somebody who does not have so much of a shadow to integrate, okay? And so you can see a massive jump in somebody's consciousness and their awareness when they do a lot of healing and a lot of shadow work. Your higher self chose to put you in the body that you're in right now, in the life that you're in right now, and in the childhood that you lived for very specific reasons. And to resist your childhood, your body, your life, your family, your circumstances, and everything that's happened to you equates to resisting your expansion, your lessons, and therefore your particular flavor of awareness that you're meant to develop to walk the particular path that you are supposed to walk. So to give you an example, there's a woman that I know who grew up with an alcoholic parent. And because she lived through that challenge, through that suffering, and she went through that learning the lessons and eventually stopped resisting it and started actually doing the inner work and doing the healing, she was then able to alchemize all of that and was able to get into alignment with the path that her higher self chose for her, which was helping other people who suffered at the hands of being in a family with an addict, one or more addict, or actually helping addicts themselves. Because she went through that, and because she didn't resist it, because she accepted that this is what happened to her, and she integrated and she learned the lessons, she then was able to transmute that whole experience and have a particular piece of awareness and a particular flavor of power in this physical reality that allows her to help addicts and people who are affected by living with addicts or having family members who are addicts. She would not be able to do that if she had stayed in resistance to the fact that this was her childhood and these were her circumstances. And so there's something just really important to remember within all of this, especially if you are deep into the law of attraction, the manifestation, all of that. I'm telling you guys, I have manifested physically everything I ever thought I wanted. And then when you get here, I mean, hallelujah, amazing, thank you. But when you get here, what's left is this desire to just be in alignment with why you are really here. So you transcend the need for self-gain. You transcend the kind of lack constricted mindset that feels like it needs all of these material things. Once you get those things, you realize, okay, there's nothing really there. And then your consciousness shifts and you start to think, right, what purpose did my higher self bring me here for? And how am I blocking that? And one of the biggest ways that we block that is through resistance. So when you resist the things that are happening in your life, just remember, you are missing out potentially on the divine orchestration that is occurring behind the scenes. A lot of us have this set point for what we'll tolerate, so we'll be able to rise above the circumstances and stay aligned with our higher selves until something pretty significant happens. And then we're like, no, resist. No, don't want that. No, no, thank you. The moment you resist it is the moment it will start to persist. And that is actually the moment that you begin to come out of alignment and you begin to actually resonate with this circumstance rather than resonating with what you prefer to resonate with. And just in general, if the spiritual teachers, if the most enlightened beings to have walked the face of this earth practiced radical acceptance of everything, don't you think we should maybe take a leaf out of their book and see how that feels? Don't you think that might be a precursor to higher levels of peace, joy? Acceptance is actually quite high up on the map of consciousness, so it is a precursor to enlightenment. We can see it on the Hawkins map of consciousness. Acceptance is really high up there, and it's not easy to get to a point where you are radically accepting absolutely everything, because pain and suffering is still a very tangible, real experience, although this is kind of a temporary game that we are playing in this physical world. The physical character that is playing this game is still actually feeling the pain. It's still happening, so it's real and it's also not real at the same time. Those two truths are coexisting at once. The more you can accept what is happening externally, the more you will liberate your energy internally. And you can begin to practice this in small ways, and then you will have built up the strength in that acceptance muscle to practice it in big ways. You might be watching this if you've been a subscriber for a while thinking, Katie is literally wearing a shawl. Where is the girl that curses? I'm going to give you a really crude analogy. Don't worry, you guys. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm balancing all the energies all at once. They're coexisting. So next time, and this is for those of you who thinks that acceptance makes you weak. Next time you see something in reality, a circumstance that doesn't sit well with you, that you don't like, that you want to fight, that you want to resist, that you want to complain about, I want you to say to yourself, I am not going to let this circumstance make me its bitch. I'm not going to let this circumstance make me its bitch. Okay? The moment you start to resist, it has power over you. It is controlling you. Right? Let's take a really easy example. You're driving and someone pulls out in front of you and they're a terrible driver. It's probably me. And their indicator is on, it's off. Blinker for my American audience. Their blinker is on, it's off. It's on, it's off. It's on for 5 minutes, it's off again. They're braking, they're driving, they're braking. And you're there thinking, oh my God, I'm already late. Why is this happening? You are allowing this circumstance that's here to teach you patience. You are allowing it to dictate to you your state. So you're letting that circumstance of a little car with probably just a little old lady in the front who's a little bit confused about where she's going, you're letting that make you their bitch. You are at the whim of this random event rather than you being in the driver's seat and saying, oh, I see that this is happening. I see that she's toddling along the motorway. I see she's having a hard time with her indicator. Let me just turn the music up and play my favorite song and look around and enjoy this drive. The most extreme example of this, and I love that he wrote the book about this, is Michael Singer. And I'm still learning this as well, by the way, guys. But I can tell you right now, the more I surrender, the more I receive, because that is divine feminine energy. So that's a whole other topic. I have a video on feminine energy. You can type in Katie Clark feminine energy if you want to watch it. But Michael Singer did this in a really extreme way where he surrendered to life totally. And life brought him the most miraculous things that his logical, rational, masculine energy mind never would have been able to come up with, okay? So there's a flow of events, there's a flow of things happening. And depending on how you respond to the things, if you're in resistance or if you're in acceptance, they can either be happening for you or happening against you. This is also a really, really strong symptom of a higher state of consciousness. So you guys know I'm obsessed with the human states of consciousness. I've been reading a lot of David Hawkins because I think he was obsessed as I am. I think that's safe to say, God rest his soul. But when you move up on that scale of consciousness, and I'll get Alex to put the map on the screen, you've seen it before. When you move up in your state, in the scale of consciousness, and you start moving out of the lower states and you start moving into courage, so over level 200, and you go up and up and up, what happens really around the area of above 200, but then really around 500, when you start moving into love, there is a harmonizing effect that happens, okay? So rather than when you're down in the ego and you're judging and resisting and fighting everything, and everything is separate and against you, and it's like me versus them, him versus him, this isn't working, you're looking at problems all the time. As you ascend in your awareness and you become accepting and non-resistant, and you're surrendering to life and the things that are going on, and you're obviously doing your shadow work and your meditation and all of that spiritual work as well, what happens is your consciousness expands and raises. And you're able to perceive, because you are more conscious, right? You've got more light within you. You're able to perceive more light in reality. And that has a harmonizing effect on what you view as reality. So you'll have the same situation presented to you that you may have been presented with when you were in a lower state. But this time you can see all the good. This time you can see how the positive ways that this situation can link to this one, and how these people can help each other, and how it's working for you. Okay, so as you work on yourself, as you heal from the past, as you step into your power, as you get into alignment, this will sort of happen naturally as well. And then eventually you will get into the flow state, which means you become so non-resistant and you've removed so many parts of yourself that aren't really you, that you actually start to get into alignment with why you are actually here and what your higher self really wanted for you. And once you do that, you basically have more energy of source, of God, that you're able to channel through you and into your life, which means you'll enter flow state, essentially, where things happen that don't make sense. You just know things because you know things. You just know what to do, you know who you are, and it's easy and effortless like breathing. That is available for everybody. And I'm telling you this as somebody who has suffered, who has run out of money more times than I can count, who's been in 25 misaligned dead-end jobs, so far out of alignment, I don't even know how I made it back here. It's possible for everybody. So in conclusion, you can light all the incense, you can do all the yoga. This is so ironic because I think I literally have incense Yeah, I had incense burning behind me. You can do all the yoga, you can wear the shawl, you can balance your chakras, you can charge your crystals, you can do all of that. But if you're still fighting and resisting the things that are going on in reality, then there's still some spiritual work to do. You're still letting these things outside you control you. So I invite you this week to just accept whatever comes up, whatever comes your way. Practice acceptance. It's a practice. The meeting didn't go the way that you liked. Okay, I accept. And what you'll find is the more you train the muscle of acceptance, so whether it's the driver in front of you, whether it's the bad weather, whether it's the way someone spoke to you, whether it's a dynamic you're resisting or a career project that's not going well, the moment that you accept these things, you will find that right after that, in the next moment, that's where awareness will come in. Because you can't be in judgment and resistance to something while also understanding it. Those are opposite energies. You accept it first, then you understand why it's there, and then you're aware as to what to do next. I gave the example last week in my video where I was actually at a retreat in Sedona, and the first day we did a lot of shadow work, and I didn't get to go as deep as I expected to go. And so I was a little bit disappointed after day one because people around me were having this like massive release and big emotions coming out. And I was just there like dry-eyed, like nothing. I even like felt myself coming out of meditation a few times. And I was thinking, oh, has this been a waste? Have I done it wrong? Why did I not get to have a release like other people in the room? And so I was in resistance to the fact that I didn't have a super deep shadow work experience like other people in the room. And I went to sleep and I woke up and I said, before day two started, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to accept that day one, shadow work day, was exactly what it needed to be for me. I don't know why, I don't get it, I don't understand it yet, but I'm accepting it. It was exactly what it needed to be. And 2 seconds later, a voice came into my head that told me, basically, I just had this awareness that I didn't get to go deep on that shadow work because I'd already faced the parts of the shadow, most of them, except for one or two, that we were working on that day. And so the lesson for me was to realize that I've already done a lot of healing and to actually own that. And it was such like a light bulb moment, but I couldn't have had that light bulb moment. I couldn't have had that seed of awareness if I had kept resisting the experience. Okay, so I accepted it and then I got the awareness as to why it unfolded that way. So please remember, your higher self usually has a plan for you. You are divinely supported, you are divinely guided. And sometimes you just have to relax, let go, and trust and accept for you to actually realize what kind of orchestration is actually going on in your life. Now, I'm not saying to just sing Kumbaya and not do anything. You always have to lead with the energy that you wish to receive back from you. That is still as true as ever. But both of these things are true. You have to embody the energy first before you see it reflected back to you. You have to give yourself everything that you're looking for externally before you can experience it externally. So if you're looking for validation externally, you need to give yourself that validation first. If you have low self-worth and you're looking for things outside you that are high self-worth, you are not a vibrational match to those things. So you need to work on your self-worth first, and then you will see high self-worth reflected back to you in your circumstances. That is true. But at the same time, the path to getting to the high self-worth or to whatever it is that you're looking for, sometimes it doesn't look how you're supposed to look. And so accept whatever comes up along the way, and you will have so much more awareness. You'll be able to move through obstacles and hurdles as you are intended to. You'll be able to move through them quicker, and you'll be able to get the awareness and the lesson quicker, and therefore evolve and transcend to the next level. I just had a one-liner to close on for you guys that just came to me. If you resist the testing, you'll miss the blessing. So I'm going to leave you guys on that note. I love you all so much. I will see you guys next week.